So admittedly, it was only just now looking at that slide that I don't know that I'd ever thought before about this being the ingredient for the best pimento cheese. So now like that's something that I need to be aware of for the future. Cabot also is the one that introduced me to pimento cheese. I don't think I mean, maybe that's a Southern thing. Like I, as a Connecticut dairy farmer, was not aware of pimento cheese as a thing. But I will say that for me personally, in my household of one, me and my dog, Extra Sharp is like Extra Sharp and Seriously Sharp are like the mainstay in my fridge. Kind of like how April always has her cracker cuts. Like this 8-ounce bar is just like, it is as critical as like coffee and milk in my refrigerator. And so as the slide showed that there is some crumbliness, so it's not going to be the same texture as that 75%. But it also speaks to just kind of like the aging of it and that sharpness that comes with it. And so for me, like this is just the default cheese. Like it will be used for whatever I'm baking or cooking. It's just the easiest go-to because it has that cheddar profile, but it's not also like the premium, like 5-year cheddar where I really reserve that for like a special like cheese board. This, I just feel really comfortable with it being used for any cheese purpose.
Yeah, I think like with the Extra Sharp and, you know, then bringing up the Seriously, it's kind of hard to talk about them without kind of talking about the difference between the two. So since that'll probably be a question anyway, I'll just tackle it now. But so, you know, Extra Sharp and Seriously Sharp are kind of the big flagship products that we have. And, you know, when people kind of think about East Coast style flavor profiles, right? Or, you know, these, you know, they kind of think about this Extra Sharp flavor profile, right? So for us, you know, and what we try to do in the cheese grading side of it, the idea with the Extra Sharp is we want to have consistency be king. So we want to have every time you open that package, we want to have not just the flavor level, right? We want to have the same kind of acidity, sharpness going on, maybe a slight little hint of bitterness to it. But we also want to have the texture be the same, right? So every time kind of hopefully you're getting like a fairly crumbly texture to it. So that's kind of like consistency's king with the Extra Sharp. When it comes to Seriously Sharp, the big difference between the two, a lot of times they're a similar age profile. Maybe a lot of times Seriously might be slightly older. But what we try to do is, you know, that's kind of the profile of the Extra Sharp, but there's a lot of other interesting flavors that come over time with the natural aging of cheddar, right? So you might have sweetness flavors or nuttiness flavors going on, or you might just kind of have like an imbalance going on where some cheeses just have like a really dominant, you know, acid flavor profile to them and an acid or a sweet flavor profile. And it's not necessarily a bad cheese, but if you're looking for a customer that's looking for consistency, you know, that's who we want to buy the Extra Sharp. But you know, with all these other really cool, interesting flavor profiles that are coming out, you know, that's kind of where Seriously Sharp fits in. And that tends to be like, it's a little bit more of an adventurous cheese, right? Not bad profiles. I mean, we have a place to, you know, to get rid of that cheese too. But when it comes to just kind of interesting, long aged natural cheddar flavors, we kind of leave that for the Seriously Sharp side of it. So that's just kind of the answer beforehand, the kind of difference between those two flavor profiles. So when it comes to the Extra Sharp, again, it's going to hopefully have that same kind of degree of kind of what we kind of call a Northeast bite, but again, it's kind of the same level of like acidity and bitterness every time. So yeah, I think it's again everyday kind of functional cheese. It's not also an excellent table cheese. It's great to cook with. It's kind of just it's kind of the workhorse of the lineup. Yeah, interested to see what you paired with this one.
Well, you know, with the sharpness that you have in there, but what I have to tell you that, you know, my first time judging at the International Cheese Awards, I had 51 cheddars, and I was my co-judge was the cheesemaker for Wexford Irish Cheddar, and we went through every one, and all 51 were different, and they had different characteristics and all of that. And what's interesting here is that you know, the butter really comes out in this. You know, you're not sacrificing that to make it tangy or to make it salty. There's maybe a hint of salt, not predominant. It's not really in there that much. It's just a nice hint, but the balance is just, for me, absolutely perfect. There's a nice tanginess. I would say kind of like maybe like a Myers lemon tang, you know, not the flavor, but the tanginess of it. And then butter balanced in there. And it's like, you know, just a really nice combination. So I wanted some hoppiness here, but I didn't want to go to full IPA out there. So I went with the Lagunitas little something. And that's got some hoppiness to it. It's got a nice balance, but it also has a nice malt background. And I wanted to capitalize the malting on there. And then as for a flavor, I chose back to Bonnie's Jams again. And this is her red pepper jelly that has got a nice kick and spiciness to it. And I really like that with cheddars. I think that works out really well. And to kind of cool it down a little bit, I have the Effies, and this is their rye cake. And the rye, I really like how I think natural earthy that brings it. So you get that little bit of earthiness. I would say that you put this together just with the cheese and it gives you a little bit of a bandage wrap flavor. And then you add the spices to it and it brings out more butter. And then you add the beer to it and the tanginess comes out. So that's what I got.
Nice, that's a great mix. And I think the texture together with the Effies and the kind of crumbly body of the Extra Sharp probably go pretty well together.
Well, I'm realizing now that Craig and I pulled the short straw here because like we should be in Florida together having this segment because I am just here with 6 bars of cheese, which no complaints, but like your spread, Michael, is incredible. I also like, I think I love hot pepper jelly. And so I think when there's an opportunity to like really accentuate the creaminess of the cheese by having that little bit of a kick, like that's a go-to for sure. We also have like a raspberry jalapeno jam. And I really like when there's an opportunity to throw that little zing in like you did with that ginger earlier. That is it. The Extra Sharp just ends up being such a nice kind of delivery, I guess, for all those flavors. I also love that your dog has just come to check things out. I intentionally gave my dog a cheese stick so that she would stay on her bed for the duration of this segment. But your dog is smarter than mine. She doesn't realize that I've got copious amounts of cheese hanging out here. But yeah, so and for me, like I mean, we're talking about beer, but I tend to also end up with either a Cabernet or Merlot that I'm having with my cheese at the end of my work day.
Good suggestion. Yeah, I think so. On mine, I mean, God, there's so many fun flavors going on here. It's a lot of pairing options. I mean, one thing I do like that you bring up that a lot of people don't always kind of pick up on, but kind of that kind of the tangy notes to it, right? It's almost kind of like a fresh citrus kind of sourness that comes with our Extra Sharp. And yeah, so playing off that, I mean, I think kind of going on the other side of the coast from Lagunitas, but I think, you know, trying to find an IPA that's kind of maybe some Cascade hops that's not overboard, like in a kind of an East Coast style that's not overboard bitter. Because I think if you get one that's too bitter, right, it's just going to kind of kill the flavor of the Extra Sharp. But if you can find one that's kind of a little Cascade, kind of fresh hopped, but without a lot of bitterness, I think that tends to pair pretty well. So I guess you'll have to kind of go out and explore different brands to find that, but just trying to find one that doesn't go too overboard. And then I think one of the things that I like to serve sometimes, especially if I get a piece that's kind of like, you know, pretty crumbly, is just kind of buying a thing of like guava paste and just kind of cutting those into cubes and then just having like a nice crumbly piece of Extra Sharp with a, you know, little cube of guava paste kind of toothpicked on the top. I think, you know, just kind of keeping it simple like that, I think tends to work out pretty well. So I think somebody had told me years ago, it's called Romeo and Juliet when you did that, but with guava paste and then old cheddar, but I've never seen the reference since, but it's a good mix. So.
Well,
and I did a demo where we did a cube of the Extra Sharp cheese with a hunk of divine chocolate and a half of a grape. And I think like that was just so novel to a lot of people, like to combine those 3 things like chocolate and cheese, but like that is a real thing. Like that belongs on your charcuterie board. And so the being able to pair like a nice piece of dark chocolate, I think works better than a milk chocolate with the cheese. Like you get some really interesting flavors, and then you throw the grape on there, and it's sweet and it's tangy and it's nice.
In my book, at the end of each chapter, there's 12 pairing chapters. I have a cheese board, and in the cheese board, I have 2 or 3 chocolates listed with charcuterie, with spreads, with that. So you can kind of pick and choose what you think would go best for you and what you like. You know, not everybody likes dark chocolate, and some people just like milk chocolate. But so when they do work together, you can use that as an option. But I love chocolate and cheese. And IDDBA, I did a chocolate and cheese session with beer. And believe it or not, it works out perfectly. Wine too, of course.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, anybody that's watching this is that, you know, if you're getting intimidated in the least bit about talking about flavor profiles, I mean, really, I mean, this is supposed to be approachable and really fun, right? And I think one thing to always remember, like each individual person's kind of like a snowflake, like our actual personal flavor profiles are quite a bit different from each other. So I think, you know, as you're watching this, it's a lot of it is just kind of thinking about what you're experiencing, kind of, you know, again, having fun with it, like getting a chance to try a little bit of chocolate and try a little bit of this cheese and just see what happens with it. And again, we all have a little bit of uniqueness going on with our flavor, with our palate. So, you know, don't let anybody tell you it doesn't work. You know, just kind of get adventurous and see what you come up with. So we're hopefully just giving you some ideas and some reasons why it might work, but ultimately kind of get a little adventurous out there and combine.
Yeah, absolutely.